In this presentation, I will be discussing the presence and the role of the Prophet Muhammad, as well as the role of the famous Arab astrologist Albumasar in the context of the iconographic theme of disputation over the Immaculate Conception. One of the most famous paintings of the theme is located in the Franciscan church in Poljud in Split on the eastern Adriatic coast. It was painted by Michele Luposignoli in 1727 as a copy of the painting dating from 1518, whose author was Nicola Brezzo Giacortino. In it, we can see the Virgin Mary as standing upon a huge crescent and surrounded by 39 doctors of the Church, saints, popes, cardinals, and bishops who advocated the doctrine of Mary's Immaculate Conception. Most of them are holding parchments, scrolls, and books in their hands. An Arab astrologer, Albumasar, whose name was Latinized as Albumasar, is represented in the lower left corner of the painting, holding a spherical astrolabe and a scroll with the inscription in Latin. The quotation seen on Albumasar's scroll derives from the sixth book of his manuscript, Introductorium in Astronomiam. This Arabic script was translated into Latin by Herman Dalmatin in 1140, and the first printed editions were published in Augsburg in 1489 and then in Venice in 1506. The citation is therefore a Latin translation of Albumasar's paraphrase of prophecies attributed to two pagan astronomers, Hermas and Astadius from Persia, who had predicted the birth of the Virgin in the first decade of the constellation of Virgo. But while translating Albumasar's text from the original Arabic, Dalmatin intervened with comments in Latin. The most important intervention he made in the passage is the phrase Virgo Immaculata, Immaculate Virgin, which does not exist in the original text. Therefore, several medieval and early modern Christian writers and preachers were led to consider Albumasar himself as a prophet, which led to him being depicted as a prophet and the advocate of the doctrine of Mary's sinlessness. The same can be said of the other painting of Marian iconography, which features Albumasar. It is a retable from the Cistercian monastery near Wolburg in Westphalia, which dates back to the second half of the 14th century. The central axis of the said painting depicts the Virgin and the Child in whom several iconographic themes are synthesized. She is the throne of Solomon, Mary in the Sun, and the Immaculate Virgin. Albumasar is shown in the lower right position next to Mary's throne. But the only attribute that allows us to identify him as Albumasar is the ribbon with the inscription in his hand, which is similar to the one from Split. The other figure of our interest here has long been identified as the Prophet Muhammad, primarily thanks to the scroll with an inscription in Latin. This citation, though, was not in fact taken from the Quran, as it says on the scroll, but rather from the collection of hadith, and probably from the most famous Sahih al-Bukhari. The hadith is narrated by Abu Huraira, and it says, I heard Allah's messenger saying, there is none born among the offspring of Adam, but Satan touches it. A child therefore cries loudly at the time of birth because of the touch of Satan, except Mary and her child. Of course, the author of the iconographic concept of the painting in Polyud did not use the collection of hadith written in Arabic, but rather their Latin translation. The first known author to use this hadith for the purpose of discussion over the Immaculate Conception of Mary was the Franciscan friar Marquard von Lindau in 14th century, and after him many other authors who wanted to defend the concept of the Immaculate Conception. In the years 1523-1524, shortly after the Pala on Polyud was painted, Francesco Signorelli created an altarpiece of Disputation over the Immaculate Conception for the Church of Santa Maria al Calcinaio near Cortona in Italy. The Virgin is flanked by male figures who are holding books and scrolls with inscriptions. Our attention was especially drawn by the male figure sitting in the upper right row. He is dressed in a blue tunic and is wearing a sort of a turban. He is holding the inscription in Latin written on the scroll. The figure, of course, is Muhammad, which previously explained the citation from the Hadith, the same one as in Split. To conclude, in the long-standing theological debate about the Immaculate Conception of Mary, theologians who advocated the controversial concept during High Middle Ages and early modern times used different arguments in its defense, including the Muslim written sources as well as the Muslim figures, which therefore appear in painted artworks that represent the iconographic theme of Disputation over the Immaculate Conception.